Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you might happen to be. And I am getting some audio of myself. There we go. I thought I had muted that. Now I have. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live. Even with that wonderfully professional intro, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news from the past week, things that have popped up since the last show, last Tuesday, and give you all the information or some of the information you think you might need or we think you might need. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, Burley_adopter on Twitter as a tech journalist and a bunch of other things. And I didn't say this last night because during our show Anime Octane, because it was, the first show back after Thanksgiving, and I was probably still in a food coma. But happy belated post-Thanksgiving for anybody here in the United States that obviously was celebrating that particular holiday. And happy third night of Hanukkah for all of our Jewish friends and followers around the world. Let's jump right into it, folks. Well, actually, first I'm going to do a little bit of promo, as I generally try to do, and that is on your screen right now. You are seeing the URL for how to find us on Twitch. Twitch.tv/nerdcaliber is our address. We're trying to build up our followers there, get it up to the wonderful presence we have on Facebook and YouTube. So if you get a chance, if you have an account, of course, if you get a chance, go to that URL and start following us. We stream on all three platforms every show, and we'd love to see you there. So, in the chat already, Lissy, welcome to the show. Ikaro, welcome to the show. Luminous, welcome back. Excellent. I'm glad the audio sounds great. The implication is that sometimes it doesn't, which is true. So, can't really fault you on that one. There we go. Finally, so the comments weren't showing up on Facebook for some reason. Now they're back. Alrighty. So, since it was the Thanksgiving holiday and Thanksgiving holiday weekend here in the United States, there wasn't a ton of nerd news. Some of the stuff that we got is very interesting, so we're just going to jump right into it. That is a screenshot from the MMORPG game. Well, that's redundant because RPG is role-playing game. So the MMORPG DCU Online. And the news out there is that in information that was put out by the parent company of Dimensional Ink Studio, which is the company that runs DCU, created and runs DCU Online. This company, Enad Global 7, put out their Q3 2021 financials and started talking about things that were going to be happening in the next quarter, in 2021, and what they call near-term, and then finally long-term projects. And in that, one of the long-term projects, though the last one they cite, is they are working on a Marvel-based MMORPG. So that's really cool. I love the idea that they're doing this. DC Universe Online is a pretty solid game. It's got great graphics. The guy running it is... I'm going to mess up his name if I don't have it in front of me here. Jack Emmert for Dimensional Ink Studio. Jack Emmert also created what, in my mind, is probably the best superhero MMO ever made, City of Heroes. So the guy responsible for City of Heroes and who's currently running DCU Online is going to be in charge of making a Marvel MMORPG. I'm really excited about this as a fan of both Marvel and DC, but both Marvel and MMORPGs. So can't wait for this to happen. Now, game development cycles, if they just announced it, or it's the first time they've actually put out any public statement about it, 2023 at the very earliest. Look how long Amazon was working on New World. the very first early alpha tests of New World were 2018. So we've been working on the game for long enough to get alpha tests, and then it took another 3 years for it to finally come out. This just got announced. It hasn't even, who knows how far along in development it is. It's a long-term project. So, I'm thinking 2024 at the very, very earliest, probably 2025 or later. But still, we'll see. Hopefully it's going to be based on the Unreal 4 engine, or maybe even something better, cooler, newer when it comes out. But I'm really looking forward to this. And I was very excited to see this news. There was something else that dropped in there. And I don't actually have the report up. Let me see if I can bring this up and scroll down really quickly. About what else they were working on. This company also owns Lord of the Rings Online, one of my other favorite MMOs, which I haven't played in a long time, but I do still have an account. And in their medium term, so obviously after 2022, so probably 2023 or 24, they will be, and they're calling it in conjunction with or alongside Amazon's new streaming series based on Lord of the Rings IP. They are going to be updating, revamping all the visuals, upgrading what they call modernize the experience, and release it on consoles. So if you are a fan of the Tolkien experience and you want to play a game that was absolutely licensed by Xantz and therefore Tolkien Enterprises, and which had really tight control over some of the things, like you don't die in that game, you retreat, because when people died in the novels, they were dead. Other than Gandalf, of course. So it just, they had really, really tight control over this thing, and so it really plays and feels like a Tolkien work. So that was pretty cool news. So big MMO news for our MMO fans. All right, this is a kind of a sad news. Well, it's not really sad, but it's unfortunate for me. That is I'm going to screw his name. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. As his first sort of breakout role in nerddom anyway, Black Manta in Aquaman, the best part of Aquaman. Don't fight me. Or fight me, because I'll argue that for days. He has dropped out of the role he was going to be playing in Furiosa. According to this article on Deadline, it is because of scheduling reasons, and that's really unfortunate. From Black Manta right into playing the new Dr. Manhattan in the HBO Watchmen series, playing the lead in the new Candyman movie. He's an amazing actor, and he's really blowing up. Replacing him will be Tom Burke, who I haven't seen in anything, and his credits are, this is the first, what they call big theatrical release movie. Apparently he played Orson Welles in Mank, the Netflix movie. And then, a couple of, something called The Souvenir, and he's in an upcoming movie with Florence Pugh called The Wonder. Yeah. But relatively unknown, which is, if he could pull off Orson Welles, that's pretty impressive, but I haven't seen anything of his work, so I have no idea how well he's going to fill this role, and I'm not even sure I know what the role is. The article here doesn't really say anything about, what the role was supposed to be. So, now this article also says, sources say that Mateen II left over quote, a secret passion project he had been developing for some time. News also dropped today that he has created his own production studio and signed a development deal with Netflix. So maybe that's what this passion project, or where this passion project is going to land. If that's the reason really why he left, maybe he left just because, he knew he was starting a studio. Or a production company. and needed to invest the time. Anyway, I think it's a loss for us. I am a big fan of his. Hopefully, Burke will do fine in whatever particular role Mateen was supposed to be in. So, more casting news. That is Ivana Sakno from the sequel Pacific Rim. And the news here, this is an unconfirmed story from Deadline. Again, as I say, Deadline, they have their inside sources and they're generally pretty solid on these things. Is that Sakno is going to be joining the cast of the Star Wars Ahsoka in a brand new role, written for the series. So not a previously existing Star Wars canon character. I think that's, it's good. I don't know that I've ever seen anything that Sakno's been in. The joke is that, aside from one letter, her name is kind of an anagram for Ahsoka. But, yeah, no. So, this is, again, of course, Ahsoka's the Dave Filoni universe. It's going to be written by Dave Filoni, produced by Filoni and Jon Favreau from The Mandalorian, and so on. And if you saw the second season of The Mandalorian, you kind of see where they start this version of Ahsoka's story. More casting news. That is, of course, Rupert Grint, Ron Weasley from the Harry Potter series. The news is that Grint has joined the cast of Guillermo del Toro's upcoming episodic sort of horror thriller series called Cabinet of Curiosities. We talked about this the last time when they basically dropped an enormous group of names of people that are eventually going to be in various episodes. Andrew Lincoln, F. Murray Abraham, the Crispin Glover, David Hewlett, Tim Blake Nelson, Peter Weller, Panos Cosmatos, Jennifer Kent are writing it along with Vincenzo Natali. I was already very much looking forward to this series. I am now just even more so looking forward to it. Grint has been doing an awful lot of, indie stuff until this Apple series, Apple TV series Servant. He is a solid actor. If you haven't seen any of his less well-known indie stuff after Harry Potter, it's worth searching for. So, Cabinet of Curiosities, bring it on. I'm all excited for it. It's Del Toro. What else do you want? This news just blew my mind. So, we had talked about the fact that Universal, as not really part of their trying to make the Monsterverse still happen, they're making a movie called Renfield, which is about the insane asylum resident in England who helps Dracula come to England. That is going to star Nicolas Hoult, who will play Renfield. And this right here, folks, is who's going to be playing Dracula in that movie, Nicolas effing Cage. Harry Brady, welcome back to the show. Not a lot of topics, and despite my best effort of trying to stretch some of this stuff out as far as possible, we're about halfway through. What we're talking about right now is Nick Cage is going to be playing Dracula in the upcoming Universal movie Renfield, starring Nicolas Hoult. Whatever this turns out to be, whether it turns out to be terrible, whether it turns out to be great, it's going to be awesome. Nicolas Cage coming back to a vampire role. By the way, the image there is, of course, from very early in his career, Vampire's Kiss. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching for his performance, which is insane, might be a subtle way to describe it. Um, yeah, it's a thing. Let me tell you. Um, so one of the things this notes that Cage is coming off some of his strongest reviews. This is the Deadline article. In some time with the thriller Pig, and his next movie is this Lionsgate film called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I haven't seen Pig yet. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think I've got a review screener, for Oscar nomination consideration, in one of my emails, and it's like, yep, that's one I'm definitely going to get to. So it's great to see him coming back, and if he takes that energy, that seriousness into the role of Dracula, I think it's going to be fantastic. If he doesn't, I think it's going to be fantastic, just for a completely different reason. Now, Nicolas Cage does wonderful, terrible better than anybody else. So, I was kind of interested in this. Boy, am I interested in it now. What a huge get for this. So, the director is Chris McKay, who did The Tomorrow War. And the original story was written by, or the outline of the story was written by Robert Kirkman, The Walking Dead, Invincible, etc. And then Ryan Ridley wrote the script. So, fingers crossed this, turns out to be something really impressive. All right, this next story is kind of local, and, I wouldn't say it's not important, but it's on here mainly because of its more local connection. That is one of the many, many screens from a Rock Band game. This one happens to be Rock Band 4. The news is Epic Games bought Harmonix, the company that made Rock Band and a bunch of other games. Harmonix based here in the Boston area. And this article doesn't say anything about how much Epic paid for them, which generally means it's probably not an amount that would be considered material to their bottom line. That's the thing with financial reporting. If any financial transaction, like an acquisition, an M&A, is going to be materially affecting the bottom line of the purchasing company, it has to be reported in a financial disclosure statement to the SEC. That's not in here anywhere. So my guess is, Epic Games is enormous. They bought and they own Unreal. They just bought Unity. The preeminent mobile game development, which means the platform that most games in the world are developed on now. And they're saying they're buying Harmonix because, no big surprise here. Now we'll be working, or Harmonix is saying, we'll be working with Epic to once again challenge expectations as we bring our unique brand of musical gaming experience to the metaverse. And we couldn't be more excited. Metaverse stuff, folks. Who knows if that'll happen? Epic now owns Harmonix, which means that Harmonix now has big, big pockets behind them. I know some people who worked at Epic or at Harmonix who were there at the ground floor. I hope they still have a stake in the company and got a big payday. And everybody else who was at Harmonix or is still at Harmonix now that Epic has dumped cash on them, will stay there. The studio will grow and they'll start doing even more stuff. Again, this is really local and it's really personal, but I kind of miss the days of Boston being one of the powerhouse hubs of game development. When you had someone like Irrational Games, that company would never have been an Activision Blizzard or a Riot or, there was no Old Boys Network going on at Irrational. And frankly, none of the game companies I ever visited or talked or interviewed here in the greater New England area. So, all right. Mostly none. Good news for Harmonix. Big ups for them. I'm really hoping some of the people that I know who come from Harmonix still have, their investments there and got a nice payday. And I look forward to seeing what Epic money will do. It's Epic money, but Epic Games money will do for Harmonix. So our next story, kind of hidden in, unless you're a super Game of Thrones fan or George R.R. Martin fan, in all of the hype about House of Dragons and other news about prequels to Game of Thrones that are being worked on by HBO right now, is Dunk and Egg. That is from the cover of the book collecting the tales of Dunk and Egg. And there are 3 novellas that George R.R. Martin have written. This series, which is based on Sir Duncan the Tall and the future King Aegon Targaryen, set about 90 years before the events of the Game of Thrones books and series, has landed its writer and executive producer. So Steve Conrad is going to be the writer and the executive producer. I didn't know, so they list here in this article Patriot, which is a series, Perpetual Grace Limited, which I'd heard of, a sort of dark comedy series about faith healers and televangelists. But as it turns out, when I started going through this stuff, Conrad wrote The Pursuit of Happiness, spelled Happyness, the amazing and deeply touching Will Smith movie, and The Weatherman. He's written some really interesting movies. So I'm now more excited about this than I was when I first saw this drop, because I didn't recognize the name at all. So again, this is something that's going to be happening. They just named it a writer and executive producer. We're not going to see the series anytime soon, but I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be, I think, a really interesting exploration of stuff that led up to the things that happened in A Song of Ice and Fire, the novel series that is the basis of the Game of Thrones series, or was up to the point where there were still books. So yeah, looking forward to this. I think it's pretty cool. Our next piece of news, our penultimate piece of news, that's a wonderful image that was done years ago of Hayao Miyazaki, obviously the powerhouse creator behind Studio Ghibli. And the news is that he is coming out of retirement to make another feature-length animated movie. It's based on a 1937 book that translates the English title of How Do You Live, by Genzaburo Yoshino. Story follows a teenage boy in Tokyo who moves in with his uncle after his father dies. It is described by the co-founder of Studio Ghibli, Toshio Suzuki, as fantasy on a grand scale. So it still fits right in. It's a fantasy story, which is right in his wheelhouse. No other details, no idea of when it will happen. I'm looking forward to this. Who wouldn't be? Who isn't a Miyazaki fan? I mean, you don't have to be. You don't have to be human either. But it'd be nice if you were. And if you are human, you should be a Miyazaki fan. Because there are movies out there that kind of fit anything you want in sort of animated fantasy. If you want just an interesting tone poem about basically coming of age, Spirited Away. If you want a crazy, intense, exciting, scary action adventure with deep spiritual elements, Princess Mononoke, you know, um, so many different things that Miyazaki has made, all with this fantasy element. Luminous, yes, Miyazaki. I'm so glad he's unretiring, for at least for this one movie. Even if that's the last thing we get from him, you know, I'm very much looking forward to getting yet another Miyazaki film that I'm pretty sure is just going to be a classic right out of the gate. But again, almost no details, so we have no idea when this is going to happen. Who else is going to be involved, etc. So look forward to it though, and we will definitely be staying on top of this one. And the news that was there at the top in the actual description of the show, that is, of course, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. This is from the last movie, Far From Home. And the news is Sony producer Amy Pascal has confirmed in an interview with Fandango that there will be another trilogy of Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the MCU. She also, in this interview, so one of the other things she said is that there are, in Sony's way of thinking things, 3 containers of Spider-Man content. The animated Spider-Verse content, which is separate in their mind from the Sony MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man, because that Spider-Man is squarely in the MCU, but is also separate from the Spider-Man adjacent characters, which at this point pretty much just includes Venom and Carnage, even though, huge spoiler for Venom, I don't know, or, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I guess it's been out long enough, and it's a, mid-credits scene. But it looks like Venom winds up in the MCU. And maybe Morbius is also in this, Spider-Man character adjacent universe. But that is strongly implied that Morbius is in the MCU too, because he runs into Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes. Straight from the very first Spider-Man Homecoming. So, who knows? But, and I've got to give, credit Fandango for actually running this exact quote with the hesitations and the stops. Pascal said, "This is not the last movie we're going to make with Marvel, not the last Spider-Man movie. We're getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. It just isn't part of..." And then there's a stop. "We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies." And then very specifically, she was asked, would the character show up in Sony produced films in the future as opposed to MCU produced films? And said, "We all want to keep making movies together. How's that for an answer?" I think the implication there, because you wouldn't say for sure that Tom Holland is going to wind up in anything like Venom or Carnage or a Morbius or anything else they're planning on making, a Sinister Six or so on, that there may be a different Spider-Man coming up for Sony. Now, that doesn't make any sense, financially. But she's really having a hard time saying in this interview that Tom Holland is going to be Spider-Man in anything other than the MCU going forward. So, maybe that was part of the deal, that they worked to get a trilogy, that he's still going to be just MCU. I don't know. We'll have to see. It also makes it very bizarre that they're going to be continuing to make Spider-Man adjacent character movies if there isn't the potential of a Spider-Man showing up in them. And if it's not ever going to be Tom Holland, it's got to be somebody else. Would Sony do that? I got to think eventually people are going to be really tired of everybody going, okay, where's Spider-Man? They might be able to get away with it. Morbius, there's no way they could do that with a Sinister Six. Who's the Sinister Six going to fight? Each other? Well, yeah, they might, but anyway. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet that the next time you see anything, anything coming forward from Marvel or Disney, like maybe D23 in the summer, you're going to start seeing some titles popping up in Phase 5, Phase 6, so on. Or post-Phase 4, because I don't think they're yet actually calling anything Phase 5. But this is really good. I really like this, despite the fact that my niece is not a fan of Tom Holland as Spider-Man, or an actor in general. I'm a big fan. I think he's probably the best Peter Parker, and therefore also probably the best Spider-Man that they've had so far among the three. So with No Way Home coming out, people have said that this pretty much, gives away the ending of No Way Home. That's only true if you somehow were absolutely convinced that the ending of No Way Home meant that, Tom Holland's Spider-Man was going to die. Why would you make that assumption when Sony and Marvel are making so much money off of this that they'd literally be idiots to do that? Unless Holland was just completely done with it. And, Holland's an actor. You throw enough money at him, he's probably going to decide he's not done with it. And Disney's got money. So, that's it, folks. That's our show. Like I said, it's a short show, short week, not a lot of news, but some pretty good, impressive stuff. Before you head out, we'd really like to have you, if you get a chance, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We just have 3 tiers. Lowest one is $2. We're really looking to get people to become patrons to help us get more content out of cons as, fingers crossed, they continue to come back. And with that, I don't really have a could we, please or could we not, except, could we please continue to be, and maybe even ramp back up a little bit, the safety protocols that we've been used to for the last year and a half. If you go outside in a crowded area, or if you're inside in a crowded area, please wear your mask. If you have not been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. If you are able to get your booster, if your 6-month wait is up, please get your booster. Luminous, just saw Holland as Spider-Man in a car commercial. It does look like there's lots of money to be made. It's a good point. It's actually a pretty funny commercial too, but because it starts right off with him out in the middle of nowhere and trying to thwip a web onto something to swing away, and it's the prairie. There's nothing. So he's walking down the road. Anyway. So yeah, good point. There's big bucks to be made there. If he's doing Spider-Man as a commercial, that there's tons more money to be made, and he's willing to do it. So, and I'm willing to watch them because they're really good movies. Yes, Luminous. Your emoji is wearing a mask, as it should. So yeah, please, folks, be safe out there. I want to keep going to cons. I want to feel safe while I'm at cons. Let's get this Omicron knocked down even better than we did the Delta variant. Delta was a pain, and it caused all sorts of difficulties and tragedies and death, and let's hope this next one isn't anything like that. And we can do that if we really hunker down and do what we're supposed to. Don't be a fool. Don't infect people because you think you've got some sort of right to infect people. It's just silly. Now, be concerned for your fellow man. That's all I'm saying. You know, the holidays are here. Hanukkah is here. Christmas is coming up. Kwanzaa is coming up. If that's not a time to be concerned for your fellow man, you don't get what these holidays are about. So, be good to each other. Stay safe. Thursday, we will be talking about it. It's got to be done. Somebody else is going to talk about it because everybody else on YouTube and everywhere else has. The Netflix live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop will be our full fat spoiler chat topic on Thursday. I anticipate tears or rage or both or yeah, it's gonna be probably a pretty salty one. So hopefully we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you Monday for No Nerd Caliber, which I don't recall exactly what the topic is. So I'll let you know on Thursday's show if you decide to tune in. And of course, you'll see the event post up before anyway. So that's it for me. Thank you all for hanging out in the chat. Harry, Luminous, everybody else. And we will see you at an upcoming show. Meanwhile, stay safe, stay warm. At least here in New England, it ain't warm. Hence the sweater.